The election, which is 344 days away from today, 344 days. It will be here before you know it. We'll be circling the conventions and looking at strange hats and delegates and all that before you know it, and then the election will be upon us. But the polling has been incessant lately. It is almost hourly. It feels like we get a new poll saying that the tide has turned, things have shifted, Trump's lead is growing, Biden's numbers are bad, and then you hear Joe Biden tell us we're not looking at the right polls. We're looking at the wrong polls. So who do you believe and how do you understand it? And the best way for me to understand is to talk to somebody smarter. And Josh Kraushaar is with us, editor-in-chief of the Jewish Insider, author of Axios' Sunday Sneak newsletter. Josh, yeah, accept my apology. I mispronounced your name earlier. And a guy like me whose name gets butchered every single day understands it. So I hope you can forgive me, sir.
Yeah, I feel your pain, but thanks for having me on the show, man.
I'm glad you're here. Is Joe Biden correct? Are we just looking at the wrong polls?
Well, the reality is the polls have been pretty consistent over the last few months, and it's shown that President Biden is probably the most vulnerable incumbent president, certainly since George H.W. Bush, based on his numbers at this time. And he's got a lot of challenges from a lot of Americans feeling the economy is not healthy enough for them and for their own personal day-to-day needs, from the fact that you have a lot of worldwide events, from the war in Gaza to the war in Ukraine that seem to suggest that the world is in tumult. And you also have the age factor, which we've been talking, it's been a running theme ever since Biden first got elected. But, the president just turned 81 years old. He'll be 80, almost 82, I guess 82 heading into the, if he got reelected. And it's just a challenge even within his own party, where a lot of voters are not sure whether he's up for another 4 years of this job. So, it's sort of a double whammy. The country is feeling in a little bit of malaise. The polling indicates a pretty consistent pattern where people don't think the country's headed on the right track. They don't think their kids have a better future than they do. And that's not a good environment for any incumbent to be running in. And then you also have the fact that you have chaos abroad, and you have age factor, and these things, especially the age issue, is not going to be going away anytime soon. It's only going to become more apparent as the campaign gets underway. So these are real challenges that I think the polls do paint a consistent picture about, and it's why you can't compare it to, at least when you had, when Obama had challenges in 2011, his numbers were never quite as poor as Biden's are right now, and he could at least, hope that the economy would turn around. He could hope that a good campaign and a good consistent message could change the voter sentiment. There are a lot of fundamentals right now in Biden's numbers that are not likely to change before 2024, and that's what's worrying a lot of folks, including a lot of Democrats at the White House.
Yeah, it seems like a year or almost a year is an eternity in politics, and that there could be a couple of events that could make a significant impact on polling, or at least on people's feelings. Are there, say, a top three issues that if they turned around quickly, you could see having a positive effect for Biden?
Well, I think the biggest asset that Biden is going to have is the possibility that Donald Trump is his opponent. And even though Trump is actually leading Biden in the average of polls by a point or two, which is itself pretty significant given all of Trump's baggage and his high unfavorables on his own. But, I think the playbook for the White House is pretty simple. This election wouldn't be about, as much about Biden's political assets, but it'll be about making a choice between, the lesser of two less than ideal choices. And I think you're going to be hearing a lot about abortion rights. That's going to be an issue that's worked well for Democrats in recent elections. You're going to be hearing a lot about the threats Trump poses to democracy in the eyes of this White House. And it's ultimately going to be about, they're going to try to make this election, if Trump is the nominee, of course, about Donald Trump. The challenge is that, like back in 2020, when we did have that matchup, Trump never led Joe Biden in any poll going up to the election. Right now, it's hard to find polls showing Joe Biden ahead of Donald Trump, despite all the baggage that the former president brings to the table. I will say the other issue that the White House has been leaning on, and I'm not sure if it's working to their benefit, but they have been branding the economy in their name. Bidenomics has been the message that the president's been talking about these last few months. And I think the hope is that there's some indicators in the macroeconomic data, whether it's low unemployment, whether it's the fact that inflation has tamed quite a bit over the last year, whether the fact that there's not going to be a recession if you believe the latest economic indicators. That there's some green shoots in the economy that I think the White House is hoping will translate into a more positive perception from voters. And we're not seeing that data translate into public support for where the economy is and where things are. But I think that's the other hope, that as we get closer to November of 2024, maybe people start feeling a little bit better about their economic situation.
Well, economies are like ocean liners. They take a long time to turn and a long time to stop if they're going the wrong direction. And that is almost a year. And at that time, if the economy is significantly better, if inflation is closer to 2% like it was under Donald Trump, the Democrats, I'm guessing, are then going to try and lean on it. But the question always seems to be, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And I'm wondering if there are any categories that you think just are impossible to say, oh, yeah, I am. It seems like there are a bunch of things like you brought up home affordability, which we now know it's probably the worst it's been in 20 plus years. And the interest rates are as high as they've been for the last 3 presidencies. So there aren't a lot of areas that I'm guessing, other than maybe inflation being tamed, that Americans can say, yeah, I'm better off, because hasn't there been a significant loss of household wealth during the first 3 years of the Biden administration?
Well, goods cost a whole lot more than they did in 2020, and that is the price politically that this White House is paying. I mean, yeah, inflation has, maybe the acceleration of prices has been contained for the time being, and there's some optimism on that front, but people paying 15-16% more for groceries, for household goods, give or take a few points, than they did back in 2020. And that until that really reverses, it's going to be hard to make people think that we're on the right path and everything is green shoots and things on the going great. Now, look, I think it's funny that the test of how are you better off than you were 4 years ago is one you hear a lot in politics. Now, in 2020, we were in the middle of COVID, and we also had at the end of 2020 or beginning of 2021, the January 6th riots. So I think that is going to be the argument that this White House is going to bring to the table, like trying to showcase the chaos that Trump brought, which was culminating on the riots of January 6th. And you also had COVID. I think one of the challenges Trump faces is competence in dealing with the COVID virus. So, that's going to be the argument coming from the White House. I guess it depends whether you're looking at 2019 before COVID, before the election, and maybe how people were feeling at the very end of Trump's term when there was a lot of chaos and a lot of tumult in this country.
We're talking with Josh Kraushaar, editor-in-chief of the Jewish Insider, and he's also the guy behind Axios' Sunday Sneak newsletter. Josh, as you look at all the polling data, is there anything in that data that indicates it could be someone other than Joe Biden? And, we don't know about Donald Trump yet, even though he has a commanding lead among his Republican rivals. Is there anything among all the independent or rumored candidates in the polling that shows that there is a real vulnerability there for Biden?
Well, politics abhors a vacuum. So, I think if Biden's healthy, if he's able to run, I'm pretty confident he's going to be the Democratic nominee. Now, at his age, you never know. Like one health issue can be the difference between being able to campaign and being off the trail for a long time. So, that is the big X factor. The big wild card, though, in a general election is the presence of third-party candidates. And politics does abhor a vacuum. And if you have 2 candidates like Biden and Trump that are very, very disliked, they're probably the 2 most disliked politicians right now in the country, there is going to be an opportunity for candidates like a Robert F. Kennedy Jr., maybe Joe Manchin running on a moderate no-label ticket. You have Green Party nominee Jill Stein in the picture. You're going to need a scorecard to keep track of some of these credible third-party candidates, because if you do have two very unpopular major party nominees, doesn't mean they're not going to win, but it does mean there are going to be a lot of voters perhaps looking for an alternative. So it's going to be we're in a very volatile situation where, ironically, the primaries have been unusually stable given the level of dissatisfaction with both major party contenders, but you may see the volatility pop up in general, where you have a lot of candidates from across the ideological spectrum looking to jump in the picture as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a real credible threat to the two major parties in terms of presidential candidacies and presidential races. Perot was the last one I could even think of who had a realistic chance at one point. Kennedy seems to run hot and then put his naked, barefoot presence coming out of an airplane bathroom in front of the American people, and everybody goes, "What's wrong with him?" But you mentioned Manchin. Manchin and Romney are whispered about as a possibility for this no labels thing. If that's the ticket, who's the presidential candidate? Because I don't know if Mitt Romney's capable of taking a backseat.
No, look, I'm very confident Mitt Romney is not going to run in any capacity for 2024, and I don't know that, politically speaking, I think that would not be the smart pathway for the no labels platform to find someone. I think it would be someone. Manchin is certainly flirting with that platform, but there are other people that are outside of politics. Part of what we're seeing in the polls, Mike, is that voters are. The one thing that connects a lot of these independent or disillusioned voters is they don't trust established politics. They don't trust career politicians of any stripe, no matter where you stand on the ideological spectrum. So that's part of why Kennedy has gotten some degree of interest at the point. But maybe someone else. Mark Cuban is the type of candidate. Not that he's going to run, but he's the type of outsider, an entrepreneur, someone who speaks his mind. That sort of was how Trump came to fame in the first place, that he was not your typical candidate, not your typical politician. And there is still that hunger out there for someone who's not in the political system, not tainted by politics, and is an outsider who can capture some popular imagination. It's easier said than done, of course, and there's not a lot of people out there that fit the bill, but that is the kind of profile I think a third-party candidate would succeed on.
I had not thought about Mark Cuban in a dog's age. And I think he would be a lesser Trump, but that's a real interesting thought, because he certainly has the ability to get people's attention, and he's certainly proven himself in the business world. So, wow, thanks for bringing that up. We've been talking with Josh Kraushaar. You should find him on Twitter X. Great stuff there, as well as. You can go to Axios and get the Sunday Sneak newsletter. Josh, thanks for spending some time with us. I really appreciate your wisdom.